I'm Joeita Gupta, and this is The Pulse. Canada has a lot to offer the adventurous tourist. There are lakes and rivers, mountains and rolling plains. There's culture, food, and wonderful people. There are bustling cities and vast rolling landscapes. So, it goes without saying that if you live in Canada, tourism has an impact on travelers as well. But here's the thing. People have an impact on tourism as well. Take, for instance, a tourist with a disability. By traveling, they change not only their lives, but the lives of those around them. And traveling as a person with a disability can be equal parts fun and frustration. True, there are barriers, but there are also numerous examples of people and places rising to the occasion and doing accessibility differently. Today, we discuss accessible travel. It's time to put your finger on the pulse. Hello and welcome to The Pulse on AMI Audio. I'm Joeita Gupta and I'm joining you from my home in downtown Toronto. I don't know if you could pick up from the monologue that I sound especially chipper, and the reason for this is that it rarely happens when you are a show producer, as I am, that you think to yourself when you're lying in bed or puttering about your kitchen, I'd really like to do a show on XYZ topic. And what I need to do now is find a suitable guest. And then you sidle over to your laptop and you open up your email and bang, like magic, you get an email from Greg David at AMI saying, listen, we've got season 5 of this new show coming up. Would you like to preview it? It's all about, wait for it, accessible travel. I could not believe it. I'm really delighted to welcome back to the program Christa Couture, who is an award-winning performing and recording artist, nonfiction writer. You might remember we had Christa on the program discussing her book when it came out a couple of years back. Filmmaker and broadcaster. You've certainly heard her on AMI Audio and, of course, on AMI TV. She is also proudly Indigenous, of being of mixed Cree and Scandinavian heritage, queer, disabled, and a mom, and the creator, voice, and intrepid explorer behind Postcards, from a show that has been making the rounds on AMI TV, and we're about to preview season 5 with the lovely Christa Couture. Thank you so much for coming back. Always lovely to have you.
Thank you. What an intro. And I love that the timing lined up so well with what you were thinking about. That's wonderful.
Isn't it surreal? It was honestly, and I didn't make it up for dramatic effect. I swear I was literally at my kitchen counter doing dishes thinking, I really want to do a show about accessible travel. And there it was. Okay.
There it was. Sometimes these things just align.
Yes, they do. The stars align. Now, for those of us who haven't seen or heard or been able to take in Postcards from, tell us a little bit about the show before we dive into season 5.
Yes. Well, Postcards from, I think, has changed a bit over the years. It did 3 seasons kind of in-house at AMI, and with a couple different co-hosts. And then for season 4, Black Rhino Creative, which is a Vancouver team, took it on. And they produced a season with the host, Teresa Stashian, who's an incredible poet, an amputee based in Toronto. She wasn't able to do season 5, so Black Rhino reached out to me. Travel host is not something that I ever thought I would do in my life. It's not a job I was looking for. But when they described, it's accessible travel, it's the show is kind of told through exploring the senses. There's always 5 segments in each show, each one kind of zoning in on a different sense. They asked if I'd be interested in hosting it, and I was like, sure. And I'm so glad I said yes. So I got to be the host of season 5, and it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, it sounded like you were having a lot of fun. Now, where do you go during season 5? Tell us about some of the places you got to see.
Yes. I mean, it's incredible. They've done 5 seasons and there's still places to go, which, like you said in your monologue, I mean, Canada is a massive country with so many different aspects to explore. So in my season, we went to Salt Spring Island, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Drumheller, Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta. We went to Montreal, Niagara Falls, Whistler. I'm forgetting one. And one surprise place that I can't think of.
All right. So I happen to see this. One of the nice things about doing previews of shows is that for the very few times in my life, I get to watch something before everybody else does. Usually I'm the one who's saying, wait a minute, there was a new season of Postcards from, I had no idea that they dropped a new season. I'm that person. So I watched the episode about Drumheller, and it's a really interesting place. Set it up for us. Why is it a tourist destination?
Drumheller is like the dinosaur capital of North America because of a couple historical like climate events that happened there. A ton of dinosaur bones were revealed in the rock. And so it became a kind of a place of origin for identifying a lot of dinosaur bones. And then they built the dinosaur museum, then the tourism of this town, which before all the dinosaur stuff was like a mining town. But because of the way the water, this like I can't remember exactly. I think a glacier suddenly melted. I don't know, but eroded these giant canyons around the area. This is kind of just east of Calgary. The landscape is called the Badlands. So it's dry and rocky, and you see the layers of sediment, in the cliffs because of these sort of deep ravines that were cut by the water. And there's like literally like tumbleweed. It's surrounded by ranches, and it feels like Mars. It just feels like this landscape that I haven't seen anywhere else in Canada. So it's quite a special place from that perspective.
And a special place for you as well. Brought back some childhood memories. Tell us more about that.
That's right. So it's why we chose it. I mean, we chose the locations as a combination of places that might have like a personal significance to me or a place I'd never been and would love to see. And so we chose Drumheller as part of the former. And I'd gone on a school trip there, I think in grade 4, with like a couple parent guardians, and we all camped together, and it was such a fun school trip.
Such a fun time, yeah.
Right? And I had so much fun that I really wanted to go back with my mom. And so my mom and I went when I was 12, and we didn't know it at the time, but that trip that I went with my mom, just the two of us, I had just finished chemotherapy for the bone cancer I had. And so photos of that trip, I have, just short little fuzzy hair. It's growing back in after chemo, but I still had 2 legs, and we didn't know yet that my cancer was actually growing back in my leg, and that a couple months after that trip, my left leg would be amputated above the knee. And so, now I know that summer was a turning point. I can look back and say, wow, that was the last time I had 2 legs. It's before this major change in my life that just changed the direction of my life. And so I hadn't been back to Drumheller since then. And so we went because I had these sort of special memories of being there as a kid, because it was attached to this significant transition in my life. And I got goosebumps. We went back to sort of this place where my mom and I had gone on a walk, and I really felt it. I really could sort of tune into what it felt like when I had been there, and I was climbing the cliffs, and I had a different body then.
Yes. And but you have the body memory. You say in the clip,
exactly.
You have a body memory, like you feel it in your bones. Yes, I've been here. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When you describe it like, you said it's like being on Mars, this very rocky terrain, and there's brambles and brush and all kinds of other things. As someone who's visually impaired, I have a cane, and I use that to get around. And I have to tell you, I struggle on terrain like this, the kind that you've described, because you're having to very gently pick your way with your cane. I mean, that's just me. How was it for you? Because you've been very open about having a prosthetic and having to get around on a prosthetic. It's one thing to use a prosthetic downtown Toronto where there's an overabundance of concrete. But what is it like to navigate terrain like Drumheller, where, up and down steep slopes, and you went to look at some dinosaur bones, and you were right in the thick of it. So how did you manage that?
Yes. And that's one of the kind of challenges of a broad term like accessible travel, because it really depends on your disability, what your access needs are, right? We don't have all the same access needs. And so the show, with me as the host, the things we're doing are accessible to me with my mobility barriers, but that doesn't mean it's like accessible to all disabilities. And, you know, we try to keep that in mind and talk to different people and see how different people might enter these experiences, which I think is partly why we focus on the senses, because there's always a different, you know, the smells could be more significant if you're visually impaired, or the touch. And, you know, so we try to incorporate all those different experiences. So I will say for me, bumpy terrain can be hard. I trip easily. And if there's hills, I will definitely fatigue pretty quickly because it's just more work on a prosthetic leg. Where we went to look at the dinosaur bones, like in situ, they were, you know, sticking out of the ground, and I got to run my fingers along the dinosaur vertebrae. That was in Midland National Park, which had a really fantastic paved sidewalk throughout the park. And so I actually used a wheelchair for most of that part of the walk, because I can't, the steep hills, again, if I did them, I would just have to lie down. I would be so exhausted. So we used a wheelchair, but it was such a smooth, kind of newly designed path that the wheelchair had no problem. It just needed, you know, someone taking me up and down. And then I did get out of the chair and walk down into the rocks a bit. And I did that with assistance, you know, holding on to someone. And that's, I think, one of the things I learned with this show is like, there's some places that are very advanced in what they're doing for accessibility, especially like Niagara Falls. You know, there's a full-time Accessibly coordinator. It's her job to constantly review what a giant tourist attraction is doing, because, you know, like 1 million disabled tourists go there every year. But if you go to somewhere more remote, like Dawson City, they haven't had the chance yet to do that kind of work. And so there you're relying on like the creativity and the generosity of people around you, right? And so it would be kind of a mix, like finding out what's already been considered for accessibility in a place, or like just seeing what the crew or someone local can help me do, you know?
Mm-hmm. And often people are very happy to help out. Like they're so excited and motivated. That's been my experience when I've traveled. Either they will go the extra distance. They find it really cool that I'm there and they want to help. And even if everything's not, you know, top notch, you know, checking off all the boxes for accessibility, people are so upbeat and excited, and I find that it's very thought provoking for people. Like I will often have encounters with people, and they'll say, you know, now that you've been here, we will go back and revisit how we do things around here to see if we can make it more accessible for someone who is visually impaired. Is that your experience as well, as you sort of travel from city to city? If things weren't accessible in the more conventional sense of the word, were people willing to start having conversations with you about how they could be?
Absolutely. I've had the same experience, Joeita, and I think generally people, a lot of it is just coming from an ignorance and not an ill will, right? It just, if they don't have a disability, if they haven't been exposed to it, they just haven't noticed, oh, there is a step there. I didn't even see the step, you know, because they're just automatically going in and out of the building, or an uneven sidewalk that, you know, they don't realize someone's cane is going to trip on, or, and once their attention is brought to it, you can't unsee it, right? It's like kind of any of these sort of barriers or aspects of discrimination. It's like, once you notice it everywhere. And so, yeah, that was my experience, that generally people, you know, after we've been there and as the crew, I think they might make some change, or at least start to look around them in a new way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I struggle because I don't want to give away the best parts of the show about Drumheller. I want people to watch it. But at the same time, it's an undeniable fact that as you went from city to city, you no doubt ate your way across the country too. And at Drumheller, you got to eat something rather interesting.
Oh my God, a local delicacy.
Okay, tell us more about it. I have to know. Straight from the horse's mouth.
It is definitely one of the most memorable tastes. Like I said, every episode has a segment for each of the 5 main senses. And so, of course, taste is often food. And I don't know about you, but when I travel, food is like one of my favorite things. You want to try the local food. You want to try something new, right? And so there we are in southern Alberta, where Prairie oysters are a local treat. Do you know what they are, Joeita?
No.
I'm guessing you are maybe because you've seen the show.
I've seen the show, but okay, now that we've set it up, okay, what's the big reveal?
I'll tell you. I would say people should tune in to still either see the visual or hear the description. So Prairie Oysters is a very nice euphemism for calf testicles. And it's a waste not, want not situation. I mean, I admire the intention. For ranchers, cattle ranchers, every spring or whatever, all of the calves, the male calves are castrated so that they don't grow into bulls. Because you raise very few bulls. You only raise the bulls for breeding. I learned all of this on the show. I'm vegetarian until I did this show. But for the show, I just tried everything. But instead of just discarding all of these calf testicles, they eat them and they call them prairie oysters. I mean, they deep fry them, which, mostly any fried food I'm up for, but the texture is really... So watch the show to hear about the texture. But, and so for me, I was like, oh my God, really? Oh God. But for people who live there, there was families were out making these, all the kids know how to make them. It's part of the local culture and very much part of living on a ranch. And, so that part I love because, for me, it feels weird, but it's not for them.
No, not at all. There's apparently in the show, they were saying there's a summer festival and the technical term for the festival is Testy Festy.
Yes, the Testy Festy. Where people prepare them all in different ways and they try different flavors. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Gourmet calf testicles. So that's something else to do. You better go back during Testy Festy for round 2. So you mentioned before that there was a combination of places you'd been and had some emotional attachment to and places you had always wanted to visit. So tell me something about the latter category. Where was somewhere you got to go that you had always wanted to go and you can now take off your bucket list?
Dawson City was definitely one of those places.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah. It's quite remote. I live in Toronto, so it was a flight to Vancouver and then a flight to Whitehorse and then a flight to Dawson. And it was incredible. It's quite a counterculture town. It's full of artists. It's full of people who feel like they can't thrive or be accepted in maybe more mainstream cultures. And they've kind of really created this kooky accepting place, which is a large part of the culture. And then there's all the mining. So you have the miners culture, and then you have the artists and the kind of self-proclaimed weirdos. And I was, definitely drawn to the artist side. And it was very special being there because I think it is a really special place. Whistler was also somewhere, I lived in Vancouver for 17 years. I'd gone to Whistler once for lunch in the summertime. I had never really spent any time there. So that was a place I was really excited to go because we went in the winter. I tried adaptive skiing, which is something I'd never tried. And so even though it was a place that had been close to home for so long, it's something I had not explored. So that was another one.
That's exciting. So as you look back on the season and, I done a ton of traveling for AMI, and I have to ask you whether it has changed the way you think about accessible travel. Because, a lot of us, when we travel, I'm sure you travel more than I do for work, but when you travel for pleasure, you often, in my case, I'm traveling with my partner, so a lot of those barriers aren't all that apparent. My husband can take the edge off of a lot of situations where I might otherwise have struggled. And I find when you're traveling for work, it's a whole other kettle of fish. And you've had this laser focus on accessible travel. Do you think your thinking about the whole thing has changed?
It has, in that doing this show, we're traveling and we're experiencing it, but we're also, we're making a show. We want there to be a story. And so the producers and the directors, I'm, there to let them push me and surprise me. And so they've sort of taught me and showed me that I can do more than I actually thought I could, because we're showing up in these places and they're saying, okay, Christa, how are we going to get you to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. And then we talk to people, we make it accessible, we find a way in that I might actually give up on my own, or I might not have tried. And so they've given me kind of a confidence, or or a new kind of curiosity or will to try more things when I do travel just on my own, maybe not for the show, and so that's been really special. It's given me, I would say, some confidence and comfort in showing up and asking for help, or being a bit more curious about how I could be involved instead of sort of assuming that I can't be involved.
Yeah. The other piece around this is when we think about accessible travel, we're looking at the more conventional things like planes and buses, ferries, trains. You have a unique opportunity to assess those things in many parts of the country. Some of it very frequently travel to, like Niagara Falls. What's your verdict when it comes to accessibility of major transportation across the country?
Yeah, I mean, generally the major transportation like players, know what to do. Of course, I'm thinking of the number of friends I have who are wheelchair users and have horror stories, right? So the airlines are supposed to know, it's like legislated what they're supposed to do, but they still mess it up, right? For chair users. I mean, it's interesting because I feel like even when you're going to these major tourist destinations or working with a major airline or something, when you think they would have the education, and some people still don't, right? It's still coming down to the individual that you happen to interact with on that day. But generally, I had an okay time. The thing we faced most often was like, I think since, there was the kind of lockdown period of the pandemic, like, there's a lot more delays with flights. There's more lost baggage and stuff because there's sort of fewer, people working. And so we encountered those kinds of issues a lot. But it might also just be the frequency. I mean, during the show, I was flying somewhere at least once a month. And so if you're flying somewhere every month, it's likely you're going to run into a canceled flight eventually.
Did you want to bother to unpack? Because I did something called the AMI Road Show. It must have been in 2018. And we traveled to 11 cities across Canada, and we did them in legs. We had different stretches of this massive journey, and I just left my bag unpacked. I did my laundry, and then I just popped like toiletries and stuff in there and just left it until it was all done and over with. What's been your strategy for packing? Because you were traveling a lot too.
We were traveling every month, but I'd be home 3 weeks in between. One of the nice things about this crew is most of us have young children. Like, I have a 6-year-old, and two of the directors and the producer have kids, under 10. And so we all wanted to get back home after a couple of days. But what I started to do, I have sort of like the postcards from pile of things that stays in the suitcase. And I just like got 2 of everything, not clothes, but like I didn't have the toiletries bag. It's just a standalone. I know I don't have to go into my bathroom and remember anything. It's just already there. And there's already an extra like earpods and an extra iPhone charger. And I need a charger for my prosthetic leg. The extra one is in the suitcase. So I sort of kept the staples in the bag, and then, would just switch up the clothes depending on where we were going in the season it was.
Absolutely. You mentioned kids, and I don't think we really get into this on the show, but I am curious about how traveling changes when you're traveling with a small child. Like, I've seen parents with small children in flights and things like that, and it is a little bit more of an experience traveling with a small child. So as a traveler with a prosthetic, when you are also traveling with a small child, does that make a difference?
Oh my God, it's so hard. I'm like, it's already like me on one leg getting my stuff through the airport, and then like my daughter's 6 now, but then like a little kid who can't carry a lot or walk really far and who's going to get bored and hungry before I do. And and so, I mean, I've loved the bit of travel I've done with my daughter because it's really fun to introduce her to things. And I mean, once she's on the airplane, she's thrilled. I mean, all the movies and the games,
Yes.
But it's parenting and traveling is a lot of work.
I take my hat off to parents when I see them in the airports, and they have long layovers and things. It's like, oh my God, you've got your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
I only have time for one question, and it has to be the most important one. I'm like a magpie, and I collect things, especially if they're shiny. And I am a big believer in souvenirs. I know minimalists hate that and they're like, don't buy souvenirs when you travel. I get it. I hear you. That is your reality. It's not my reality. I'm big for collecting fridge magnets wherever I go. Are you a souvenir collector? And if you are, what's your souvenir of choice?
I like the fridge magnet one. I'm not consistent with fridge magnets, but I do sometimes, because that can be a thing if you forgot and you're at the airport and you're about to leave, you can still get a fridge magnet. I mean, what was nice with this trip would be often something that whoever participated in the show would give me. And so in Dawson City, we'd met this miner, and he showed me how to pan for gold. And we found like the tiniest little dust of gold. But when we went back to the camp, he actually gave me like a little chunk of raw gold. And so that's definitely a shiny thing, Magpie. And then
you better hold on to that.
Yeah, hold on to that. And then in Montreal, we worked with this incredible Mohawk artist who custom painted a cover for my prosthetic leg. So I expose my prosthetic leg with the clothes that I wear, and I have this custom made cover with these brightly colored flowers on it. But I've had that for 10 years. And so in Montreal, this artist made me, Montreal is a city of style and artists and fashion, right? And so we got this custom painted cover for my leg. And so for me, that's like the ultimate souvenir. And so most of what I keep has been coming out of those interactions. Yeah.
That's amazing. Such beautiful memories. And, you cherish them. So I say to the minimalists, I'm willing to discard a lot of things, but I keep my travel souvenirs. Christa, this has been a lovely conversation. I'm sad to say that our time is now at an end, but thank you very much for being the adventurer who went out and traveled from coast to coast, and I look forward to seeing Postcards from season 5.
Thanks, Joeita. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
There goes Christa Couture, the host of Postcards From. The new season of Postcards From kicks off on Wednesday, May 22nd at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on AMI TV. You can also stream the series anytime, on demand, and for free. Get that on AMI Plus. That's all the time we have for today. I am so excited. I hope this inspires you to go traveling. Drumheller seems like a really terrific place. And I really have good things to say about Moncton as well. A very underrated place. I'd actually gone to Moncton as part of the AMI Roadshow in 2018. And there was a vintage car exhibition. Very cool place. And nice people too. Had some lovely oysters, if I remember correctly. All right, enough reminiscing. Time to go. I want to say a special thank you to Greg David from AMI's marketing and communications teams. Greg's been really solid. That's a wonderful episode about period poverty. Thank you, Greg. And you'll be hearing something next week about a national disability insurance plan. It isn't here yet, but there's a group of people lobbying to make that happen. Also, courtesy Greg David. So Greg David's really been helping me out here with some of the chasing. And the technical producer for The Pulse is Mark Aflalo, superstar. And Ryan Delahanty is our AMI Audio podcast coordinator. Andy Frank is the manager for AMI Audio. And I've been your host, Joeita Gupta. Thanks so much for listening.